The grand ballroom sparkled like 1,000 stars. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across marble floors. Tonight was the night that would change everything. Lady Evangeline rose, pressed herself against the cold stone wall. Her heart hammered in her chest. She shouldn't be here. Not at the Duke of Ravenshallow's masquerade ball. Not when tomorrow she would meet the man her father had chosen for her to marry. A man she had never seen. A man whose name made servants whisper in fear. The Duke of Ravenshollow. I should leave, she whispered to herself. But her feet wouldn't move. The music called to her soul. The laughter made her heart ache with longing. She had lived 19 years locked away in her father's country estate. 19 years of watching the world through windows. Tonight was her one chance to feel alive before her cage closed forever. The mask covered half her face. Black silk and silver threads that made her green eyes shine like emeralds. Her dress was simple compared to the other ladies. Deep blue velvet that her maid had borrowed from the kitchen girl. No one would know who she was. For one night she could be free. The orchestra played a waltz. Couples spun across the floor like beautiful birds. Evangeline closed her eyes and swayed to the music. In her dreams, she had danced 1,000 times, but never with a partner. Never in the arms of a man who would hold her close and whisper sweet words. You dance beautifully, even standing still. The voice made her gasp, deep and rich, like dark honey. She opened her eyes and her breath caught in her throat. A man stood before her, tall and broad-shouldered. His black suit fit him perfectly. A mask covered the upper half of his face, but she could see his jaw, strong and clean-shaven. His lips curved in a gentle smile, but it was his eyes that stole her breath. Blue like the ocean on a summer day, blue like the sky after a storm. They looked at her with such intensity that her knees went weak. I wasn't dancing, she stammered. He laughed. The sound sent shivers down her spine. Your body was, your soul was. I watched you from across the room. You moved like music made flesh. Heat rose in her cheeks. No man had ever spoken to her like this. No man had ever looked at her like she was something precious. I don't know how to dance, she confessed. I mean, I know the steps, but I've never danced with a partner. His smile widened. Then tonight will be full of firsts. He offered his hand. Strong fingers and gentle palm. Dance with me. It wasn't a question. It was a plea. And something in his voice made her heart race. I shouldn't, she whispered. I don't belong here. Neither do I, he said softly. But sometimes the heart calls us to places we don't belong. Sometimes that's where we find what we've been searching for. She looked into his eyes and saw something that made her brave. Loneliness. The same ache that lived in her chest every day. This man, whoever he was, understood what it felt like to be trapped. She placed her hand in his. The moment their skin touched, lightning shot through her body. He felt it too. She saw his eyes widen behind the mask. He led her onto the dance floor. Other couples made room for them. The music swelled and he pulled her into his arms. His hand rested on her waist. Warm and sure, his other hand held hers like she was made of glass. She could smell his cologne, cedar and bergamot, masculine and intoxicating. Look at me, he whispered as they began to move. Don't look at your feet. Don't worry about the steps. Just look at me. She raised her eyes to his and felt the world disappear. There was only him, only the music, only the way he held her like she was the most important thing in the room. They moved together like they had danced 100 times before. Her body followed his lead without thought. When he spun her, she laughed with pure joy. When he dipped her, she felt like she was flying. "Who are you?" she breathed, as they swayed to the slower part of the waltz. "Tonight, I'm just a man who wants to dance with the most beautiful woman in the room. And tomorrow," his jaw tightened, "tomorrow doesn't exist. There is only one now, only at this moment. Only you in my arms." The song ended, but he didn't let her go. "Dance with me again. People will talk," she whispered. "Let them." His voice was fierce. "Let them talk until their tongues fall out. I don't care about anything but holding you." The next song began. And the next. And the next. They danced until Evangeline's feet ached in her borrowed shoes. But she wouldn't have stopped for all the gold in England. Other ladies watched them with envy. Other men watched with longing. But in each other's arms, they were alone in the world. "Tell me your name," he pleaded as they waltzed near the garden doors. "I can't," she said. "If you knew who I was, I would love you just the same." The words hit her like a physical blow. Love, he spoke of love to a woman he had known for mere hours. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw the truth there. This connection between them was real, deeper than anything she had ever imagined. "What if I told you I was nobody?" she asked. "What if I was just a servant girl who snuck in to see how the other half lives?" His arms tightened around her. "Then I would count myself lucky to dance with the most honest person in this room." "What if I told you I was married?" Pain flashed in his eyes. "Then I would curse fate for bringing you to me too late." "What if I told you I was promised to another?" He stopped dancing. His hands cupped her face through the silk mask. "Then I would beg you to run away with me. Tonight, right now, we could leave this place and never look back." Tears stung her eyes. "You don't understand. My father has arranged my marriage. If I don't go through with it, he will disown me. I'll have nothing, no family, no home, no future." "You would have me," he said simply. "I would give you everything I own, my name, my fortune, my heart. It's already yours anyway." She pulled away from him. This was madness. She had known this man for a few hours, and he was offering her the world. It was too much, too fast, too dangerous. "I need air," she gasped. He followed her through the garden doors onto a moonlit terrace. Roses climbed the stone walls. Their perfume mixed with the night air. In the distance, she could hear the music still playing. "I'm sorry," he said. "I've frightened you. I spoke too soon, too freely." She turned to face him. In the moonlight, he looked like a prince from a fairy tale, too handsome to be real, too good to be true. "You haven't frightened me," she whispered. "You've shown me what I can never have." "Why?" His voice was raw with pain. "Why can you never have love, happiness? A man who would worship the ground you walk on." She almost told him then about her father's debts, about the arrangement that would save her family from ruin, about the Duke of Ravenshollow who had agreed to marry her sight unseen in exchange for clearing her father's gambling debts. But she couldn't bear to see the pity in his eyes, or worse, the relief that she wasn't his problem to solve. "Because some of us are born to sacrifice," she said instead. "Some of us exist to save others, even if it costs us everything." He stepped closer. So close she could feel the heat from his body. "What if I told you that you don't have to sacrifice anything? What if I told you that I could solve all your problems?" "How?" The word was a sob. "How could you possibly understand what I'm facing?" "Because I'm facing the same thing," he said quietly. "Tomorrow, I meet the woman my father arranged for me to marry. A woman I've never seen. A woman who will become my wife whether I love her or not." Evangeline's heart stopped. You're married tomorrow? Engaged. The wedding is in a month. My father needs the political alliance. Her father needs the financial support. And he laughed bitterly, I need to do my duty, just like you. They stared at each other in the moonlight. Two souls trapped by the same cruel fate. Two hearts that had found each other one night too late. What's her name? Evangeline asked, though she dreaded the answer. Lady Evangeline Rose, he said. Daughter of Lord Marcus Rose. They say she's been kept hidden away like a treasure. No one has seen her since she was a child. The world tilted around her. The blood drained from her face. She gripped the stone railing to keep from falling. What's wrong? He asked, alarmed. You look like you've seen a ghost. What's your name? She whispered. He hesitated, then pulled off his mask. Even in her shock, Evangeline gasped at his beauty. Strong cheekbones and a straight nose. A small scar above his left eyebrow that only made him more handsome. This was the face that would haunt her dreams forever. Alexander Blackwood, he said, Duke of Ravenshollow. The mask slipped from Evangeline's nerveless fingers. It fell to the stone terrace with a soft thud. Alexander stared at her face in the moonlight, at her green eyes and golden hair, at the lips he had wanted to kiss all night. Dear God, he breathed. You're her. You're Evangeline. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The man she had fallen in love with was the man she was supposed to marry. The monster from the servant's whispers was the gentle soul who had held her like she was precious. I have to go, she gasped, backing toward the garden doors. Wait. He reached for her, but she evaded his grasp. Evangeline, wait. This changes everything. This changes nothing, she cried. You still have to marry me because of duty. I still have to marry you to save my family. The only difference is now we both know what we're giving up. What we're giving up? He followed her into the ballroom. What are you talking about? This is perfect. We found each other before we were forced together. We have a chance for real love. She whirled to face him. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Love? You think you love me? You love a fantasy, a woman in a mask who danced with you for a few hours. You don't know me. You don't know who I really am. Then tell me, he pleaded. Tell me everything. I want to know every story, every dream, every fear. I want to know what makes you laugh and what makes you cry. Why? The word was bitter. So you can pretend to love your duty? So you can tell yourself that marrying me won't be a sacrifice? His hands gripped her shoulders. Because I do love you. I loved you the moment I saw you standing against that wall, swaying to the music like it was calling your name. I loved you when you laughed as we danced. I loved you when you were brave enough to be honest about being promised to another. Stop, she sobbed. Please stop. I loved you before I knew your name, he continued relentlessly. Before I knew you were my bride, before I knew that fate had given us the most precious gift in the world. What gift? She demanded. What gift is there in a loveless marriage? A marriage full of love, he said simply. A chance to build something real together. A chance to be happy. The ballroom spun around them. Other guests watched their drama with fascination, but Evangeline saw only Alexander's face, only the hope and love shining in his blue eyes. I don't know how to be a duchess, she whispered. I don't know how to be a husband, he replied. We'll learn together. I'm not sophisticated like the other ladies. I don't know about fashion or politics or running a great house. I don't care about any of that. I care about the woman who danced with her soul. I care about the woman who was willing to sacrifice everything for her family. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I. His thumbs wiped away her tears. I've been dreading tomorrow for months, dreading meeting a stranger and pretending to care for her. But now I'm counting the minutes until I can see you again." The orchestra began playing their first waltz again. The same song that had brought them together. Alexander offered his hand. "Dance with me until dawn," he said. "Dance with me like we're the only two people in the world. Tomorrow we'll worry about duty and family and expectations. Tonight we're just Alexander and Evangeline, just a man and woman who found each other in a room full of strangers." She looked at his outstretched hand, at his beautiful face, at the love shining in his eyes. Tomorrow would bring challenges. Learning to be a duchess, meeting his family, navigating the complex world of nobility. But tonight she could dance with the man she loved. She placed her hand in his. "Until dawn," she whispered. He pulled her into his arms and they danced. Other couples joined them, but they might as well have been invisible. There was only the music, only the feeling of being held by someone who loved her exactly as she was. As they spun across the floor, Evangeline caught glimpses of their reflection in the tall mirrors. They looked perfect together, like they had been made for each other. "What are you thinking?" Alexander murmured against her ear. "That I've been afraid of the wrong thing," she said. "I was afraid of marrying a stranger, but the real fear was never knowing what love felt like. And now you know." She looked up into his eyes. "Now I know that love feels like dancing, like flying, like coming home and going on an adventure at the same time." He spun her around and caught her close. "I was so angry when my father told me about the arrangement. I felt like my life was over, like my freedom was gone. And now I feel like my life is just beginning." The song ended, but they didn't stop moving. They swayed together as the next waltz began. "Tell me about your home," Alexander said. "I want to know where you grew up, what you loved as a child." Evangeline smiled. "It's nothing grand like this. Just a small manor house with a garden full of wild flowers. I used to climb the old oak tree and read books in its branches. It sounds perfect. What about you? What was it like growing up as a duke's son?" His expression grew sad, lonely. "My father was always busy with estate matters. My mother died when I was 10. I had tutors and servants, but no real friends, no one to just be with." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It made me appreciate tonight even more, made me appreciate you." They danced through song after song. Evangeline's feet were screaming in pain, but she didn't care. This was the most perfect night of her life. She would have danced on broken glass to stay in Alexander's arms. As the night wore on, other guests began to leave. The ballroom grew quieter. The musicians looked tired, but they kept playing. "We should probably stop," Evangeline said as another couple bid them good night. "People are starting to stare." "Let them stare," Alexander said. "Tomorrow you'll be my fiancée. Tonight you're my dance partner. Either way, you're mine." The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered her, but instead it made her feel safe, cherished, like she belonged somewhere for the first time in her life. "I used to dream about this," she confessed as they swayed to a slow waltz. "About dancing at a grand ball, about wearing a beautiful dress, about feeling like I was part of something magical." "Your dreams came true. Only because you made them come true. If you hadn't asked me to dance, I would have followed you home," he said seriously. "I would have found out who you were and courted you properly. I would have moved heaven and earth to make you mine. Even knowing about the arrangement, especially knowing about the arrangement. It would have saved me the trouble of convincing your father." She laughed despite her tears. "You're very sure of yourself, Your Grace. Call me Alexander." At least when we're alone. Alexander, she repeated, testing the name on her tongue. It suits you, strong and noble. Evangeline suits you too, like music, like poetry. They were the last couple on the dance floor now. The musicians played softer, slower. The few remaining guests watched them with knowing smiles. I should go, Evangeline said reluctantly. My maid is waiting with the carriage. If I'm not home before dawn, my father will ask questions. I don't want this night to end. Neither do I. But morning always comes. Alexander stopped dancing. He cupped her face in his hands. Before you go, there's something I need to do. What? Instead of answering, he leaned down and kissed her. His lips were soft and warm against hers. Gentle at first, then more insistent as she kissed him back. She had never been kissed before, but her body seemed to know what to do. Her hands fisted in his jacket. Her lips parted under his. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. I've wanted to do that all night, he said against her forehead. I've wanted you to do that all night, she admitted. He smiled. We're going to be very happy together, Lady Evangeline. Are we? She asked. Really? This isn't just the magic of the ball talking. This is real, he said firmly. What we feel is real. What we have is real. The rest is just details we'll figure out as we go. She wanted to believe him. With every fiber of her being, she wanted to believe that love could conquer duty and expectation and fear. I should go, she whispered. I know, but his arms tightened around her. Will you think of me when you're alone in your room? Will you remember tonight? I'll remember everything, every dance, every word, every moment. So will I, he kissed her forehead softly. Until tomorrow, my love. My love. The words followed her as she walked away, as she collected her cloak from the servant, as she climbed into the waiting carriage. Through the carriage window, she watched the castle grow smaller, but she could still feel Alexander's arms around her, could still hear his voice calling her beautiful, could still taste his kiss on her lips. How was the ball, miss? Her maid asked quietly. Perfect, Evangeline whispered. Absolutely perfect. As the carriage rolled through the countryside toward home, Evangeline pressed her fingers to her lips and smiled. Tomorrow she would meet her arranged husband. But tonight she had danced with love itself. The sun was just beginning to rise when she finally fell asleep in her narrow bed, and in her dreams she danced until dawn with a masked duke who had stolen her heart. But in her dreams they never had to stop dancing. In her dreams the music played forever and love was the only law that mattered. Morning came too soon. Evangeline woke to her maid, shaking her gently. Miss, your father wants to see you. He says the Duke of Ravenshollow will be here within the hour. Reality crashed over her like cold water. The ball felt like a dream now, like something too beautiful to have really happened. But when she looked in the mirror, she could see the truth. Her lips were still swollen from Alexander's kiss. Her eyes still shone with the memory of dancing in his arms. What should I wear? She asked her maid. Your blue morning dress, I think. The one with the pearl buttons. You want to look proper but not too eager. If only she knew, Evangeline thought as she let herself be dressed and fussed over. If only she knew that her mistress had already kissed the man she was supposed to meet for the first time. All too soon, she was standing in her father's study. Lord Marcus Rose paced behind his desk like a caged animal. His face was pale and drawn. The deaths had aged him terribly these past months. Evangeline, my dear, he said when he saw her. Are you ready? As ready as I can be, father. He studied her face carefully. You look different this morning, more alive somehow. She forced herself to remain calm. I slept well. Good. You'll need your strength for what's ahead. The Duke of Ravenshollow is not an easy man. They say he's been reluctant about this marriage, but the contracts are signed. He needs our political connections, and we need his money. I understand, father. Do you? He moved to stand before her. This marriage will save our family, Evangeline. Without it, we'll lose everything. The house, the lands, our good name, everything. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders again, but somehow it felt lighter than before, because now she knew that duty and love didn't have to be enemies. I won't disappoint you, she promised. Hoofbeats sounded in the courtyard. Her father looked out the window and his face went white. He's here, he said. Remember, be polite, but not forward. Answer his questions honestly. Try to make him like you. If only he knew how much Alexander already liked her. The butler knocked on the door. Your Grace, the Duke of Ravenshollow has arrived. Send him in, her father called. Evangeline's heart hammered as footsteps approached. She smoothed her skirts and tried to look like she wasn't bursting with anticipation. The door opened. Alexander walked in wearing a dark blue coat and tan breeches. His hair was perfectly styled. His face was serious and formal. He looked every inch the powerful Duke. But when his eyes met hers, she saw the man who had held her close and called her beautiful. Your Grace, her father said with a deep bow. May I present my daughter, Lady Evangeline Rose. Evangeline curtsied low. Your Grace, it's an honor to meet you. Alexander bowed. The honor is mine, Lady Evangeline. Their formal words felt strange after the intimacy they had shared, but she could see the laughter dancing in his eyes. He was enjoying the pretense as much as she was. Please sit, her father said, gesturing to the chairs arranged near the fireplace. I'll have tea brought in. As they settled into their seats, Alexander caught her eye and winked. So quickly that her father missed it completely. I trust your journey was pleasant, Your Grace, her father asked. Very pleasant. Though I confess I didn't sleep much last night. I attended a ball and stayed far later than usual. A ball sounds lovely, Evangeline said innocently. I've never been to a proper ball. You should remedy that soon, Alexander replied. Dancing is one of life's great pleasures. Her cheeks heated at the memory of his hands on her waist, of spinning in his arms until she was dizzy with joy. Do you enjoy dancing, Lady Evangeline? He asked. I believe I do, Your Grace, though I'm rather inexperienced. Experience can be gained. Natural grace cannot be taught. Her father looked between them with growing confusion. There was something in the air, a tension he couldn't quite identify. Perhaps you would like to take a turn about the garden, he suggested. The roses are particularly fine this year. I would be delighted, Alexander said, rising and offering Evangeline his arm. The moment they stepped outside and were out of her father's hearing, Alexander pulled her behind a large rosebush and kissed her soundly. I thought about you all night, he said against her lips. I thought about this. So did I, she gasped. Alexander, what are we going to do? How do we pretend we've never met? We don't, he said simply. We tell them the truth. The truth. She stared at him in shock. That we met at the ball, that we danced together, that we fell in love at first sight, he finished calmly. It's not unheard of. It will make the engagement more romantic. Give the gossips something sweet to talk about instead of dwelling on the financial arrangements. But my father specifically told me not to attend any balls. If he finds out I disobeyed him, leave that to me. Alexander's eyes were confident. I can be very persuasive when I want something. And what do you want? You, he said simply. I want you as my wife. Not because of duty or debt or political alliance, because you're the woman I love. After one night, after one dance, he corrected. I knew the moment you put your hand in mine that you were meant to be mine. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that love didn't work that way, that people didn't fall in love in a single evening. But looking into his eyes, feeling the certainty in his voice, she found herself believing. What do we tell them? She asked. That we're perfectly suited, that we're looking forward to marriage, that we're, he grinned, head over heels in love. They walked back to the house, hand in hand. Her father was waiting in the parlor, trying not to look anxious. Well, he asked as they entered, how do you find each other? Alexander looked at Evangeline and smiled. I find Lady Evangeline to be everything I could hope for in a wife. Beautiful, intelligent, and charming. And I find His Grace to be very easy to talk to, Evangeline said. We seem to understand each other well. Excellent. Her father's relief was obvious. Then you're both agreeable to proceeding with the engagement? More than agreeable, Alexander said. In fact, I'd like to move the wedding date up if possible. Move it up? Her father blinked in surprise. I see no reason to wait. Lady Evangeline and I are clearly well matched. Why delay our happiness? Evangeline's heart soared. He wanted to marry her soon. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. How soon were you thinking? Her father asked cautiously. 2 weeks, Alexander said confidently. 2 weeks? Both Evangeline and her father gasped. Is that too soon for you, my dear? Alexander asked Evangeline with apparent concern, but she could see the mischief in his eyes. I know, Your Grace. If that's what you wish, it is what I wish. Very much. Her father looked like he might faint, but the preparations, the dress, the guests, money can solve most problems of timing, Alexander said easily. I'll provide whatever funds are needed for the wedding preparations. Consider it an early wedding gift. You're very generous, Your Grace. I'm very eager to begin my married life. The rest of the visit passed in a blur of wedding planning and formal arrangements. Alexander was charming and attentive. He asked about her interests and listened to her answers with obvious attention. To anyone watching, they looked like a couple falling in love, which Evangeline realized was exactly what they were. When it came time for Alexander to leave, he bowed over her hand and kissed it gently. Until tomorrow, Lady Evangeline, I plan to court you properly over the next 2 weeks. Court me? She asked, confused. But we're already engaged. Engaged, yes. But I want to win your heart as well as your hand. If only he knew he already had both. After he left, her father was practically glowing with relief. My dear, you've exceeded my wildest hopes, he said. The Duke is clearly smitten with you. This marriage will be far happier than I dared dream. Yes, father, I believe it will be. That night, Evangeline lay in bed, replaying every moment of the day. Alexander's kiss in the garden, the way he looked at her when he thought her father wasn't watching, the confidence in his voice when he spoke of their future. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, she would be his wife. The next morning brought flowers. Dozens of roses in every color. The card read simply, "Until I see you again." The morning after that brought a book of poetry with several verses marked, all about love and dancing and finding one's soulmate. On the 3rd day, he came to call. They walked in the garden again, while her father watched from the window. "I have a confession," Alexander said as they strolled among the flowers. "What's that?" "I've thought of nothing but dancing with you since the ball. I've arranged for musicians to play at our wedding breakfast. I want our first dance as husband and wife to be the same waltz we shared that night." "You remember which song it was?" "I remember everything about that night. Every note of music, every word you spoke, every breath you took." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "Alexander, are you sure about this? About us? It's not too late to change your mind." "Change my mind?" He looked genuinely shocked. "Evangeline, I would rather die than change my mind about you. But you don't really know me. What if I disappoint you? What if I'm not the woman you think I am?" He cupped her face in his hands. "You are exactly the woman I think you are. Kind and brave and honest. Beautiful inside and out. You're the woman who danced with her whole heart. The woman who was willing to sacrifice everything for her family. What if I'm terrible at being a duchess? Then we'll be terrible at it together, and we'll learn as we go. What if your friends don't accept me? Then they're not really my friends. What if—" He silenced her with a kiss, soft and sweet and full of promise. "What if we stop worrying about everything that could go wrong and focus on everything that's going right?" he murmured against her lips.
"Is that what you do? Just focus on the good?"
"I focus on you," he said simply. "Everything else is just details." The days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Dressmakers and florists and caterers descended on the Rose estate. Evangeline was fitted for gown after gown. Her wedding dress was a creation of ivory silk and Belgian lace that made her look like a princess. Alexander called every day. Sometimes they walked in the garden. Sometimes they sat in the parlor and talked while her father dozed in his chair. Sometimes they rode out together with a groom, following at a discreet distance. With each passing day, Evangeline fell more deeply in love, not with the mysterious stranger from the ball, but with the real Alexander, the man who remembered how she liked her tea, who brought her father books about agriculture because he knew the older man worried about his failing crops, who spoke gently to the servants and always said, "Please and thank you." He was everything she had dreamed of in a husband. And in 1 week, he would be hers. The night before the wedding, her father came to her room. He looked older than his years, but peaceful for the first time in months. "My dear," he said, settling into the chair beside her bed, "I owe you a debt I can never repay." "You don't owe me anything, Father. I owe you everything. This marriage, this sacrifice you're making." "It's not a sacrifice," she said quickly. "Father, I need you to know something. I'm not marrying the Duke out of duty. I'm marrying him because I love him." Her father stared at her in amazement. "Love? But how is that possible? You barely knew him 2 weeks ago." "Sometimes love happens quickly. Sometimes you know immediately when you found the right person." "He loves you too?" "Yes," she said with absolute certainty. "He loves me too." Her father's eyes filled with tears. "Then I haven't ruined your life. I was so afraid, so guilty. You've given me the greatest gift imaginable. You've given me Alexander." He kissed her forehead gently. "Sleep well, my dear. Tomorrow you become a duchess, but you'll always be my little girl." After he left, Evangeline stood at her window, looking out at the moonlit garden. Somewhere across the county, Alexander was probably doing the same thing. Tomorrow they would speak vows before God and family. Tomorrow she would become his wife in truth. But in her heart, she had been his from the moment he asked her to dance. The morning of her wedding dawned bright and clear. Evangeline woke with butterflies in her stomach and joy in her heart. Her maid dressed her with loving care. The ivory silk gown fit her perfectly. The lace veil had belonged to her mother. Pearl earrings sparkled at her ears. "You look like an angel," her maid said with tears in her eyes. "I feel like I'm flying," Evangeline replied. The church was packed with guests. All of society had come to see the Duke of Ravenshollow marry the mysterious Lady Evangeline Rose. She could hear the whispers as she waited in the vestibule with her father. Such a romantic courtship. They say he fell in love with her at first sight. She must be extraordinary to capture his heart so quickly. If only they knew the real story. The organ began to play. Her father offered his arm. "Ready, my dear?" "More than ready." The church doors opened and she began her walk down the aisle. But she saw only Alexander waiting for her at the altar. He was dressed in a black morning coat with a silver waistcoat. His hair gleamed in the candlelight. His eyes were fixed on her face with such love that her knees went weak. When she reached him, he stepped forward to take her hand. "Beautiful," he whispered so only she could hear. "Handsome," she whispered back. The ceremony passed in a blur of Latin and prayers and vows. But when Alexander slipped the ring onto her finger and promised to love and cherish her all the days of his life, Evangeline knew every word was true. "You may kiss your bride," the vicar said with a smile. Alexander lifted her veil and cupped her face in his hands. "Hello, wife," he said softly. "Hello, husband," she replied. He kissed her gently, sweetly. The church erupted in applause, but Evangeline heard only the beating of her own heart. They were married. They were truly married. The wedding breakfast was held at Raven's Hollow Castle. Evangeline gasped when she saw it for the first time. It was even more magnificent than she had imagined. Tall towers and graceful arches, windows that sparkled like jewels, gardens that stretched for miles. "Welcome home, Your Grace," Alexander said as their carriage pulled up to the front steps. Your Grace. She was a duchess now. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it filled her with pride. The ballroom had been decorated with thousands of flowers, the same roses from the garden where they had first kissed as an engaged couple. Candles flickered everywhere, creating the same magical atmosphere as the masquerade ball. But this time, she wasn't wearing a mask. This time, she didn't have to hide who she was. After the toasts and speeches, the musicians began to play. Alexander offered her his hand. "Dance with me, wife." "Always, husband." They moved onto the dance floor and the familiar waltz began. The same song from their first meeting. The same melody that had brought them together. But this time was different. This time they danced as husband and wife. This time they had forever. "Do you remember what you said that first night?" Alexander asked as they swayed together. "About dancing until dawn." "I remember everything about that night." "Dance with me until dawn," he said again. "Not just tonight, but every night for the rest of our lives." She looked into his eyes and saw their future there. Years of dancing together. Years of laughter and love and quiet moments in the garden. Years of being exactly where they belonged. Until dawn, she promised, and beyond. As they spun around the ballroom floor, surrounded by well-wishers and family, Evangeline marveled at how perfectly everything had worked out. She had gone to that ball expecting one last night of freedom. Instead, she had found her destiny. Alexander had gone dreading his arranged marriage. Instead, he had found his soulmate. Sometimes, Evangeline thought as her husband dipped her low and smiled into her eyes, fate knew exactly what it was doing. Sometimes, the greatest love stories began with the simplest request. "Dance with me." 2 words that had changed everything. 2 words that had brought 2 lonely hearts together. 2 words that had turned duty into joy and arrangement into romance. And as the night wore on, and the guests gradually drifted away, Alexander and Evangeline kept dancing. Just as they had promised, just as they would for the rest of their lives. Dancing until dawn and beyond, in love and in life, forever and always. Because some promises are meant to be kept, and some love stories are meant to last forever. The end. Don't forget to let me know in the comments what you thought of Alexander and Evangeline's story. Did their instant connection feel real to you? And stay tuned for more historical romance tales. I have so many more love stories to share with you.